needs, but we have been met with the responses that are favorable, and we will continue to ask for what the needs are on the ground as we move through. I want to also acknowledge our partners include Mayor Hunter of Lake Charles, Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services, of course, our Louisiana National Guard and State Police. I want to acknowledge the work of all of our agencies here on the ground, particularly the public safety team of the City of New Orleans, which includes, of course, our Office of Homeland Security, NOPD, EMS, Fire. All of us are on the ground. Orleans Parish Communications District have just been outstanding. EMS to date has responded to about 152 calls at hotels throughout our city. We're currently hosting, as I said, 10,785 evacuees, and that number seems to grow by the day and remains fluid. 35 hotels are continuing to service our evacuees in our city, and we're responding as best we can. We have seen roughly 2,000 of our evacuees visit this resource center, and it is a priority for me to keep it going as long as possible, and I'll be working with our governor in regards to that. We have a meeting after this press conference. And so with that, I just want to turn it over now so that you all can hear directly from our governor, John Bel Edwards, and join me in thanking him for being here on the ground with us. And Governor, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. We really appreciate the opportunity to be down here and to see firsthand what we've known for a number of days now, and that is the tremendous reception that New Orleans has given to these evacuees from principally from Southwest Louisiana. And 15 years almost to the day after Katrina hit New Orleans and sent New Orleanians across the state and across the country looking for shelter. And it's great to know that we are being good neighbors to one another, and that neighborly love is in evidence. It is absolutely astonishing to see how much is taking place here, and I want to thank the mayor for that. I want to thank Councilwoman Helena Moreno. They literally called us. We didn't call them. They called us when they knew that they would be taking in evacuees here in New Orleans to see what they could do. And in addition to everything else that goes into sheltering, they put this resource center up. They wanted to make sure that the people felt welcome here from the time they arrived, and that their lives were made just a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable. So I want to thank the City of New Orleans and the mayor and her team, everybody who is represented in that ballroom, but really the people of New Orleans, because it's your individual donations that's making this possible. There are almost no needs that are being unmet here. The supplies are being donated. People have access to telehealth and other health services, behavioral health services, medicines, you name it. It is very impressive, and we really appreciate it. You welcomed over 10,600 fellow Louisianans. You're taking care of 400 to 500 of them every day here, more than 2,000 thus far. And I want to thank our folks at the state level, the DCFS, the National Guard, and all of those partners. But look at the work that's being done in that room. It is truly inspirational. As of this morning across the state, we had 11,679 people being sheltered. That is obviously primarily happening in New Orleans at 37 different hotels. I did want to make folks aware that Louisiana has received a waiver to allow SNAP benefits to use to purchase hot or prepared foods. That'll last through the month of September. This is vital for residents who have been displaced or staying in hotels or shelters without access to a place to cook. You can't use these benefits at a restaurant, but you can use them at grocery stores, convenience stores, supermarkets that actually have a hot food. Maybe it's a deli. You can get rotisserie chicken or the pizza, whatever whatever it is. But that waiver is going to be very important. I want to try to talk to some of our folks in Texas, and I hope that they're going to be getting this information. But we have several thousand Louisianans that continue to shelter in Texas. They primarily are in hotels in the Houston and Beaumont area. Because we remain in hurricane season, the state of Texas has decided to move those individuals to shelters, which will be non-congregant shelters as well, hotels, but in primarily the Dallas and San Antonio area. And for those individuals, we are encouraging you to go to the hotels that are being offered to you in Texas, because quite frankly, if you come back to Louisiana and your property isn't safe, habitable, and secure, your home, then there's a good chance we're going to have a challenge trying to find a non-congregate shelter for you, because just about all of the hotel rooms that we've been able to get in Louisiana under contract are currently being used. So we're asking you to stay in Texas if you do have that opportunity. But we also want you to call 888-911-5229, and you can confirm your parish and you can register for those accommodations in Texas. And for everybody who's evacuated, pay attention to the local government as to when it's time to return, because we're going to still be some time before there's basic services available like electricity and water service. And so just those real essential things are just not going to be in place, and you're much better off in a shelter, non-congregant shelter like you see happening here in New Orleans and elsewhere around the state and in Texas. And I do want to thank the governor of Texas and all the people of Texas for being such good neighbors. In 2017, we actually conducted search and rescue in southeast Texas, and we evacuated those individuals through Lake Charles, put them up at shelters primarily in Alexandria for a number of days too. But we really appreciate the state of Texas and the work that they're doing. That's another example of being a good neighbor. If you want up-to-date sheltering information, you can text LA Shelter to 898-211. LA Shelter to 898-211. If you want to know whether an individual is in a particular shelter, we've got a number for that too, but we're not going to give you that information. We're going to give you an opportunity to give us a message that we can deliver to the individuals you're looking for, if in fact they're sheltering with us. We're calling it a Connect line. You can either call the Connect line or you can fill out an online form. The number is 225-342-2727, or you can go online at dcfs.la.gov/connect. I want to give an update on FEMA registrations. When we left Baton Rouge a while ago, FEMA reported that they've registered more than 104,000 survivors in the 16 designated parishes. They have already distributed more than $32 million in immediate assistance to individuals who have registered. Assistance can include grants for temporary housing, home repairs, low-cost loans to cover uninsured property losses, and other programs to help individuals and business owners recover from the effects of the disaster. Federal funding is also available on a cost-sharing basis for emergency protective measures, which we call Category B. That includes direct federal assistance for public assistance for hazard mitigation measures in parishes of the state. In all parishes of the state. And so that public assistance, that's funding that's made available by the federal government through FEMA to help with public infrastructure. And currently, individual assistance and public assistance categories A and B are approved for the following parishes. That's Allen Parish, Beauregard, Calcasieu, Cameron, Jefferson Davis, Vernon, Grant, Jackson, Lincoln, Natchitoches, Rapides, Sabine, and Wynn parishes. And then finally, with respect to these types of assistance, individual assistance and public assistance category B only have been approved for Acadia, Ouachita, and Vermilion parishes. Since yesterday, we unfortunately have 3 additional deaths to report that have been confirmed as related to the storm. One individual had been in the hospital for several days suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. He succumbed to that poisoning yesterday. He was actually the 5th individual in one home who was killed by carbon monoxide. and that family was from Lake Charles. Two additional deaths were reported out of Rapides Parish yesterday, an elderly lady and a younger gentleman who had heat-related issues, and they were pronounced dead, and those deaths were linked to the storm. So it's important to remember that just because the storm passed, that doesn't mean that the threat has passed. So with respect to generators, please follow the instructions. If you need to run a generator, do that, but run it at least 20 feet from your house, not in your garage, not in your carport or your crawl space, or nowhere near a door or a window or a vent. And make sure that you only refill that generator with fuel when you've turned it off and let it cool down. We did have a house fire, I believe it was in Beauregard Parish. The house burned down because the individuals refueled the generator, and the generator was hot and too close to the house and caused the fire. So please be very careful with that. I would remind people also that when you're outside working, make sure that you take breaks frequently, that you drink plenty of fluids. Understand that the heat indexes across Louisiana have just been extremely high. They've averaged 105 to 108 all week. And that's obviously high heat, high humidity, and we're asking individuals to make sure that they do the best that they can to pace themselves, take breaks, drink water, because most individuals do not have air conditioning to go in and cool down like they would normally have, and most people have far more work to do, cleaning up, making basic repairs, and that sort of thing. So we're encouraging people to mind the heat, or be mindful, I should say, of the heat and the threat that it poses. I want to talk a little bit about COVID. Today, the state is reporting 828 new cases of COVID-19 on a total of 15,545 tests. That's a total of 151,473 cases. We're also very sadly reporting 14 additional deaths from COVID-19, and the number now is 4,872 in total. There has been another slight decrease in hospitalizations around the state, which is very welcome news. I think the number today is 808 hospitalized patients. But as we move into Labor Day, I'm asking every Louisianan and everyone who is in Louisiana for any reason, whether it's related to Hurricane Laura and relief efforts, restoring power, whatever reason you're here, please be very mindful of the fact that our last surge started on Memorial Day weekend when people let their guard down. There was too much activity, too few people wearing masks, too few people being socially distant, too many people were interacting with others even if they felt ill. Those are the things we just cannot have if we're going to keep on top of this virus and keep the cases going down, the positivity going down, the hospitalizations going down, and the deaths going down. We've already surged in Louisiana twice, and I don't need to tell the people of New Orleans how bad that was in the March and April, early May timeframe. And while I'm thinking about that, Mayor, I want to give you and the council here just tremendous credit for the work that y'all have done. Because they very quickly got on top of the highest growth rate anywhere in the country, perhaps in the world, flattened the curve, and unlike the rest of the state, Orleans Parish did not surge the second time. There was only a slight increase here, and that's because of really good, consistent leadership and the assistance that they've gotten from the people here in Orleans Parish. But as a state, we've surged twice already. We don't want to see that happen a third time. We've had to work too hard. And we know we have our schools in session, our higher education campuses are bringing students back. We've got people from Southwest Louisiana by the tens of thousands spread across our state today. Not just those that are in a shelter, but most people have left on their own. They're staying with relatives and friends, or they may be in hotels on their own. And in addition to that, we have tens of thousands of people from out of state, in-state, to reconnect power, to deliver supplies, to remove debris, to do construction work, you name it. And so we have more activity than ever going on right now. And as you know, there's about a 2-week lag time between increased activity and the actual transmission of the virus, and when that starts to show up as cases from our testing, and then it'll show up a little bit later in our hospitals, and then it shows up a little bit later with additional deaths. We don't want to experience that again. And we also want to make sure we can continue to reopen more of our economy and not have to pause any longer than is necessary, and certainly not have to go backwards. So we need your help. We need the help of everybody in Louisiana. First of all, you really shouldn't be going into any large gatherings. But if you have to do something on Labor Day, make sure that you wear your mask. When you're around people who are not part of your immediate household, stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands well and frequently, and don't go if you feel ill. Just don't do that. And if we can have everybody do those things, we're going to be successful. Until there is a vaccine that is safe and effective and widely distributed and administered to enough of the population, we just have a new normal. And I know that people are tired of the virus, but guess what? The virus doesn't care whether you're tired of it. And so we need to stay on task. So we have a tremendous challenge in Louisiana. We have more than one at a time. And I will remind people it remains hurricane season till November the 1st. We know that between now and about the middle of October is when we would typically see another hurricane in Louisiana. We don't want one, but we're not in control of that. And while we're going to pray it doesn't happen, we're going to prepare for it. And we want the people of Louisiana to be ready for this too. So if you haven't done it yet, go to getagameplan.org, and you need to have a game plan for you and your family. You need to have the right supplies. And in a COVID environment, they consist of things that you wouldn't ordinarily have in your kit. So make sure that you do that. And then make sure that you continue to get tested for COVID. It's incredibly important that we know what the positivity is like across the state of Louisiana. And with that, I'm going to stop and take a few questions before my meeting with the mayor.
Governor.
Tyler, I knew you would be first, but I'm going to go over here and come back to you. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about FEMA registering people. What does the state need that it does not have right now?
Well, thank you very much for the question. The question is, what does the state need that we don't have? Well, we do need individuals to register. FEMA looks at those registrations, and it really helps to drive their decisions about how much of Louisiana is damaged and where that damage has occurred. Is it concentrated? Is it concentrated in the population of poor people, of elderly people, of people that don't have adequate insurance? And it really drives decisions they make about the types of assistance that they provide. So we are encouraging everybody who's been affected by the storm to go to disasterassistance.gov and register. And if you'll be asked a series of questions, and you may be entitled to some relatively immediate cash assistance as well. But we're also working with FEMA to try to get 100% cost share on certain elements of the damage that they will cover. There is a precedent for this. It was given to Texas after Harvey, and so we have submitted the request yesterday just about noon to try to get assistance with that. I will tell you, we've had very responsive federal partners at FEMA, and we're working with them to try to make sure that we transition when it's time to do so out of our sheltering and into a more robust housing program. It's going to look like travel trailers in driveways. It's going to look like a manufactured housing unit, which is basically a HUD-approved trailer parks. For some period of time, it's going to look like hotels. And when we lose the authority, which I'm very thankful, the president, when he gave us the pre-landfall declaration, he allowed us to do non-congregate sheltering, and FEMA's paying their share of that. But we can do that for a period of time through the current contracts. After that, we can keep people in hotels with vouchers through a different program, the TSA program. And what we want to do between now and then is make sure that the same hotels participate in the voucher program, so we're not uprooting people unnecessarily. And then in the meantime, we're also encouraging people to take advantage of a program that FEMA has tasked to the Corps of Engineers, and it's a Blue Roof program. Because the first thing we want to do, where we can make people homes safe, habitable, and secure, we want to do that because that's where people want to be, and if they can be home, we don't have to try to worry about the sheltering. And sometimes it really is just a roof. So the Blue Roof program that the Corps has is critically important as well. And look, we're going to continue over the next several weeks and months because we're going to be a while recovering. We're going to continue to ask the federal government for more and more assistance. I do want to remind everybody that the damage in southwest Louisiana is very widespread, and it is catastrophic. Basic life services are just not available, and I'm talking about electricity, I'm talking about water. We've got nursing homes that have been evacuated, we've got hospitals that have been evacuated, so there's a lot of work that has to take place. And so as difficult as it is, we're asking people to be patient. Now, it is a little easier for people to be patient when their needs are being taken care of, like is happening here in New Orleans. So that's another reason why this resource center is so important. Tyler?
Yeah, before you arrived, I was talking with some people who'd gone through the line as a family of 6. They said they had spent 7 hours at the Zephyr Field on Tuesday trying to get shelter. Didn't get it. They're down in Slidell. They're paying for it. I think something that people don't understand is here in the city with all these empty hotel rooms, why aren't more of them being filled up with evacuees?
Well, because the hotel owners have to sign a contract with the state of Louisiana. And we've reached out to hotels. We're getting as many under contract as we can. We're finding as many rooms as we can. But I would encourage anybody who's in that help to go to that text LA Shelter to, and I can't remember, so I'm going to look back at that again. LA Shelter to 898-211, or they can dial 211 and make that call, and we will try to get them back in the system because we are able. We only have about 50 people in congregate sheltering in Louisiana for shelters that we are running, and we're working every day to get those people into non-congregate sheltering. So we're able to do it right now in the low numbers that we're adding every day. So I would encourage those people to try again because I think that we can probably help them now, and that's for anybody else out there that's in a similar situation as well. Yes.
Governor, I have a high school football question. Eddie Bonine said today that he's recommending that Louisiana start playing high school football even if the state stays in phase 2. Can he do that? And I mean, is that possible that we could play football if we're still in phase 2? And your comments, your opinion of that?
Yeah, well, it is. And if you looked at my proclamations have never said that you couldn't play high school football. I think what happened late in the summer, the High School Athletic Association made a decision to link the phase that we're in by my proclamation with what they would allow to happen on the school campus. And they have opted to change that guidance now in the event that we don't go to phase 3. By the way, the current proclamation ends next Friday. So in the middle of next week or Wednesday, Thursday, we'll be making an announcement about whether we're going to go to phase 3. Obviously, I hope that we can. I hope the data supports that. We've always wanted to be able to do that, but we will look at the data and we will apply it to the gating criteria that have been set forth by the White House Coronavirus Task Force and for the reopening plan for America. And either we will or we won't. I hope that we will. But that happened on my way down here. I don't have all the information about it, but I want to tell people there was never anything in my proclamation that was directed at, not just at football, but at contact sports, for example. And so if the High School Athletic Association has done this in consultation with medical officials, looking at CDC guidelines and so forth, and by the way, I know that this is happening around the country with high school football going back. What I think we have to do is every time we reinitiate any activity, whatever it is, our obligation is to make sure that it's as safe as it can possibly be and that we are testing. And that if it proves to be unsafe, that we are able to address it very, very quickly. And so the testing is going to be critical there, but just like it is everywhere else, just the resumption of schools, the resumption of higher education, the testing that we need to do because of all the activity we have associated with Hurricane Laura, and the evacuations and the sheltering and the servicing of people that you see here. All the people coming in to restore power and to pick up debris. There's more going on now than we've had since March. And I think it's a good thing that we're testing as much as we have. In the next few days, we'll go beyond 2 million tests administered in the state of Louisiana. We're right at about 1.95 million today. And so within the next week or so, we should eclipse 2 million tests. And right now, I'm encouraged because the data shows us that the positivity continues to decline, that hospitalizations are declining, and so forth. So, you know, but my proclamation was never addressed specifically to contact sports, whether it was in high school or otherwise.
Could I ask the same question to the mayor, if you don't mind?
You don't need to ask me that question. I mean, let's be real about it.
Yeah.
We're not there. We're in phase 2 with no contact sports this time.
How long do you anticipate the hotel rooms being available for? Is there a timeline on how long people will have that option?
Okay. Where is Colonel Waston? General Waston. Just make sure I get this right. So the contracts that we have for hotel space for non-congregate sheltering here in New Orleans, we're in Baton Rouge, we're in Shreveport. I believe we can stay for about 30 days. And at that point in time, we're expected to transition to the TSA program, which is a voucher that we give the evacuee, but they can only go to a hotel that's going to accept the voucher. And so what we're trying to do now is before the 30 days expires, for those people who are going to continue to need a hotel room, we're going to try to see if we can get the same hotel that's participating in the contract with the state to participate in the voucher program. So it's at least 30 days under the current contract that we have, or we have approval from Washington to have contracts in place for 30 days. Once that expires, it'll transition to a voucher program, and then of course we're going to get people back at least much closer to their home in one housing option or another just as soon as we can.
Who's paying for all that housing? The city, the state, the federal government?
Who is paying for the sheltering?
Yeah.
Well, it's a cost share right now that's being borne, and the generally applicable cost share is 75% federal, 25% state. And I have no doubt that before this disaster is over, we're going to eclipse the threshold that will authorize us to go to a 90-10 cost share. That threshold is about $700 million for the state, and so then we'll end up with a bill for 10% of the difference. I'm sorry, 10% of the amount of the cost. And in certain instances, we're already working to try to get 100% of the cost available based on what FEMA has done in other states after other disasters. Another question or so, and then we're going to, yes ma'am.
As we stand here today, is there clarity on how much longer this resource center will be staffed?
Well, I'm going to give my answer to that. I'm going to ask the mayor to maybe come up and address it afterwards. We are working now to find a contractor to come in and run the resource center. And we've done this before with contractors. We did it most recently after the 2016 floods in Baton Rouge. We brought in contractors who would run a very similar resource center to people who were being sheltered, for example, at the Celtic Studio there in Baton Rouge. We're working through that procurement process right now because we know that the mayor has a lot of her employees here in addition to the volunteers, and we want to be able to free those people up to going back to doing their essential work. And so, but as far as how long the mayor will keep this going while we work on that, I have to ask her to come and speak to that.
Well, thank you for the question. As I mentioned in my initial remarks, it is my hope to keep the resource center activated as long as possible, but the city of New Orleans, be clear, cannot do this on our own. As the governor mentioned, we have city employees from multiple departments that are here, including, of course, volunteers throughout the city of New Orleans. So I'm going to be meeting with the governor after this, talking more directly about how we can sustain the resource center. I know being evacuated after Hurricane Katrina, you need access, and you need it for the long haul, because it looks like our people will be with us for a while. And I know firsthand how this resource center has been able to provide our families with their resources that they need. And having it cut off, it really does, it would be a problem. If it is cut off here at the convention center, it is my hope and push that the state would be able to activate, maybe through Red Cross, on sites where our evacuees are, so that they can be have access to these resources again firsthand. So we'll discuss the existing conditions, some of the issues that we're concerned about, but my hope is to keep these resources flowing. And I mentioned, my city employees here. One example, as I was sharing with the governor, the city of New Orleans was blamed for towing vehicles and ticketing vehicles throughout this process, and which has not been the case at all. And only I'm saying this because I want to warn our evacuees who are here. The city of New Orleans is not doing any towing. We have not. Since we have received evacuees, we have knowledge and intel that it is a scam going on. The New Orleans Police Department are all hands on deck on this, but instead of the employees who would be the ones towing, they're right here giving out formula and diapers. So I wanted to make that clear, but hopefully we'll keep these resources flowing.
Mayor, if I could just quickly follow up, this week you talked a lot about the city needing resources and you're going to be fighting for that. What specifically are you going to be asking the governor for?
Well, I'm going to be asking specifically what I articulated earlier in the week, and it's just basically that New Orleans receives her fair share of not only how we have to administer the care to our residents, but also being a city that has to run and provide basic city services and have yet to receive our full complements of the CARES Act money that the state has encumbered. So I'll be working through that with my governor, and I believe we'll get there. Thank you.
I want to thank y'all for coming out and covering this, and I do hope that what you choose to cover and focus on is the tremendous work going on here in this building at the initiative of the City of New Orleans and so many other partners who are in there delivering invaluable services to people who really, really need it. So we have thousands of our fellow Louisianans whose lives are upside down. This is just one way of providing some help to them so that they can feel better about things and have some hope for the future, take care of their most basic needs until we can get them back in their home and their lives completely right side up. And it wouldn't happen if we weren't being good neighbors over here in New Orleans, and you are being good neighbors, the kind of neighbors that we're called to be in Luke chapter 10. And I just want to thank you, Mayor, and all the people of New Orleans. And then we will obviously have other press availabilities in the future, probably back in Baton Rouge next. But for all the folks here in New Orleans, it is good to see you again. Y'all should come to Baton Rouge sometime. Thank you.